What drives someone to sacrifice everything, even their own health, in pursuit of an ideal of strength and perfection? The story of Ilia Golen, a bodybuilder who pushed the limits of the human body, is not just about muscles and dedication. It's a gripping tale of extreme choices, relentless ambition, and the high cost of chasing the extraordinary. Get ready to dive into the life of a man who lived like a titan and left behind a legacy of awe, admiration, and heartbreak. Ilia Golen was born in a small town in Eastern Europe, surrounded by challenges and a community where physical strength was often mistaken for a person's worth. From an early age, he was a skinny kid, always a step behind others when it came to sports or physical activities. At school, he was a constant target of teasing. His thin frame and lack of athletic skills made him an easy mark for classmates looking to vent their own frustrations. It was there, in the midst of laughter and scornful looks, that a seed of determination began to grow in Ilia's heart. Young Golen wasn't the type to talk much about his dreams. He kept his thoughts to himself, but observed the world with hungry eyes. He spent hours watching action movies and admiring bodybuilders on magazine covers. To him, these muscular men looked like real-life superheroes. What he saw wasn't just strength but power, respect, and a way to shed the label of being weak. He decided that one day he too would be admired. That quiet determination became his driving force. The first step was the local gym, a modest space with old, rusty equipment. Ilia walked through the doors timidly, unsure of what to do but determined never to leave the same. He started with light weights, but the intensity he poured into every repetition was that of someone lifting more than just iron bars. He was hoisting years of humiliation and transforming emotional pain into physical strength. Before long, the results began to show. His arms became more defined, his back broader, and little by little, he noticed people around him starting to look at him differently. As the years went by, Ilia didn't just grow physically. He developed an obsession with the perfect body. He devoured books, videos, and any material he could find about bodybuilding. He studied diets, training regimens, and eventually began exploring substances that promised faster results. At first, he hesitated. He was aware of the risks, but he also knew that those he admired, the idols on magazine covers and social media, had taken this path. In Ilia's mind, there was no other choice. He decided to do whatever it took. By the time he was 25, Ilia was unrecognizable. Standing 6 feet 1 inch and weighing over 310 pounds, he had muscles that seemed ready to burst at any moment. His presence was magnetic, and he started attracting fans both online and in real life. People approached him in gyms and at events, asking for advice, taking pictures, and praising his dedication. He always responded kindly, never forgetting where he came from and how it felt to be invisible. But behind that impressive and approachable exterior was a constant struggle. Every meal was a sacrifice. Ilia consumed 16,500 calories a day, an extreme volume that made eating as challenging as lifting weights. Each meal was meticulously calculated, packed with carbs, proteins, and fats to sustain the body he had sculpted. He also began using controversial substances like anabolic steroids and size-enhancing oils. Despite warnings from doctors and concerned fans, Ilia held his ground. He underwent regular checkups and assured everyone he was in control. He believed that with discipline and knowledge, he could defy the odds. To him, his body was a temple, but also a battlefield where he waged a constant war against his own limits. Ilia's fame grew, but so did the criticisms and questions. While some admired him, others saw him as a dangerous example. The pressure to achieve more extreme results intensified. He felt he had to push further, to prove he could do more. During this time, Ilia connected with Rich Piana, a bodybuilding legend known for his massive physique and life philosophy. Whatever it takes. The phrase resonated with Ilia like a mantra. He decided he would do whatever it took to achieve his goals, no matter the cost. The cost, however, began to show in subtle ways. Ilia noticed fatigue that wouldn't go away, chest pains he attributed to physical exertion, and increasing difficulty breathing after intense workouts. But he ignored the signs. In his mind, this was just part of the price all greats had to pay. He couldn't stop. Not while there was more weight to lift, more fans to impress, and another record to break. At 36, Ilia was at the peak of his physical form, but his body was already showing signs of collapse. He had become an iconic figure, a symbol of discipline and determination, but also of excess and risk. By then, his journey was no longer just about himself. He carried the hopes of young people who saw him as a role model, but also the weight of the choices he had made over the years. And though he would never admit it, Ilia knew his heart was racing against time. The story of Ilia Golen is one of triumph, ambition, and sacrifice, but also a quiet warning. He achieved what you can, but at what cost? As he moved closer to the climax of his journey, it was impossible not to feel that the line between triumph and tragedy was becoming dangerously thin. The final chapter of Ilia Golen's life unfolded like the climax of a Greek tragedy, a mix of calculated choices, ignored warnings, and the weight of a journey that had always teetered on the edge. Despite his imposing presence and unwavering confidence, those close to him started noticing something had changed. The giant seemed tired. His once vigorous, high-energy workouts were now interrupted by long pauses. The smile he gave his fans was still there, but there was something in his eyes that betrayed an internal struggle. Ilia, however, wasn't one to complain. He carried his pain like a warrior refusing to show weakness. The fateful morning started like any other. Ilia woke up early, as he always did, and began his meticulously planned routine. His first meal of the day, as usual, was monumental: eggs, potatoes, oatmeal, and enough supplements to fill an entire shelf. He sat at the table, chewing methodically, watching bodybuilding videos for inspiration for his workout. But something was off that morning. A mild chest pain made him pause for a moment. He glanced at the clock, reflected briefly, and dismissed it. Pain, in Ilia's mind, was just a sign he was on the right track. At the gym, he was greeted by his training partners, who, as always, admired him. Ilia was impossible to miss. His presence dominated any room. He started with light warm-ups, but quickly moved on to the heavyweights that had made him famous. Each rep was met with looks of awe from others at the gym. He seemed invincible, a force of nature defying human limits. But the body has its own rules, and on that day, it decided to collect the price of years of excess. During a particularly heavy lift, Ilia felt a sharper pain in his chest. This time, the pain was different. Intense, deep, as if something inside him was about to break. He dropped the bar and stumbled backward, gasping for air. His friends rushed to help, but true to his stubborn nature, Ilia insisted he was fine. He said he just needed some air, and stepped outside to the parking lot. There, the giant leaned against a car, trying to catch his breath. But the pain didn't subside. Instead, it grew, radiating to his arm and jaw, clear signs that something was seriously wrong. Deep down, he knew this was more than just discomfort. The collapse was sudden. Minutes later, his friends found him unconscious on the ground and called for emergency help. When the paramedics arrived, Ilia had no pulse. They worked frantically to revive him, using every tool and technique available. After several tense minutes, they managed to restore his heartbeat, but he was still in critical condition. He was rushed to the hospital, where doctors did everything they could to stabilize him. But the damage was already done. Ilia's heart, overwhelmed by years of extreme strain, had failed. At the hospital, doctors confirmed the worst. Ilia had suffered a severe cardiac arrest and, despite efforts to revive him, was now brain dead. The news was devastating for his friends, fans, and family. The man who seemed unbreakable was now motionless in a hospital bed, kept alive only by machines. Word spread quickly. Social media was flooded with messages of shock, sadness, and tributes. For many, it was hard to believe someone so strong could fall so suddenly. But for others, especially those familiar with the risks of extreme bodybuilding, Ilia's tragedy was seen as an inevitable outcome. The days that followed were filled with reflection and discussion. Friends and family tried to process their loss, while experts and critics debated the dangers of the lifestyle Ilia had chosen. Some saw him as an inspiration, someone who lived with passion and determination. Others pointed to his story as a cautionary tale, a stark example of the dangers of ignoring the body's limits in pursuit of an extreme ideal. Among the messages of condolence, one phrase stood out. He did whatever it took. It was the mantra Ilia had lived by, but now it served as a reminder of the price he paid. Ilia Golen's death wasn't just the end of a life. It sparked a necessary conversation about the extremes of modern bodybuilding. Experts began sharing information about the devastating effects of years of steroid abuse, hypercaloric diets, and relentless training. They highlighted the heightened risk of heart problems, hormonal imbalances, and other health issues that often led to premature deaths. Ilia's tragedy became a symbol of the darker side of an industry that often glorifies perfect bodies without considering the cost. To those who knew him, Ilia was more than a bodybuilder. He was a friend, a mentor, and a source of inspiration. He had a unique ability to connect with people and motivate them to be better. But his story also served as a reminder that the pursuit of perfection can be a dangerous trap. At Ilia's funeral, friends and family shared memories of his kindness, humor, and determination. Many were moved as they remembered the skinny boy who transformed his body and his life, but in the process, lost something vital, his health. Ilia Golen's journey is a story of triumph and sacrifice, but also of caution. He achieved what few dared to dream, but the price was far too high. His death left a void in the bodybuilding world, but also a powerful lesson. As the machines keeping his body alive were turned off, Ilia's legacy lived on in the lives he touched and the conversations his story inspired. It was a tragic ending but also an opportunity for reflection. In the end, Ilia Golen showed the world that while physical strength is admirable, true strength lies in recognizing our own limits.